we're entering the stretch run of your 2017 preseason camp. What is your assessment of how things have gone to this point?
I think we've had some change here, obviously with a quarterback battle in place and lost some leadership off last year's team, but really starting in February when we had these juniors and seniors take a hold of this football team and we named our captains, I believe in March. These guys have done a really good job developing some different leadership styles, some different ideas on how to involve the team, all of our upperclassmen, because we have such a good group of juniors and seniors, and not to leave out our sophomores and freshmen, but we have a great group of juniors and seniors that have represented us well. They understand our program and what our expectations are, and so those guys have helped carry us through the preseason, and we feel good heading into game week here against Sioux Falls.
Okay, looking at the 2017 outlet, let's start first with the offense, where, as you mentioned, for the first time in 4 seasons, you won't have record-breaking Drew Bauer at the quarterback control. How is the battle for that starting job shaping up?
It's gone well. We're gonna name Mike Robarczyk our starting quarterback from Madison Trail. Mike's done a good job. He's, Mike's biggest challenge the last few years is being behind Drew Bauer. He's certainly talented enough to do it, and that's not to mention Ben Eberhardt and John Larson. Both those guys have done a really good job as well behind Mike, but all three of those guys this last year and a half, it's not easy to try to lead when you're sitting behind a guy like Drew Bauer. It's a challenge to be vocal. It's a challenge to be vocal in the room, certainly a challenge to be vocal on the field and off the field when you have a guy like Drew that's been leading everybody. So now it's been their time. Mike's done a really good job, just offensively, playmaking ability. He's helped separate himself, and we really have faith in all three of those guys right now moving forward.
You also lost your top 4 rushing leaders from a year ago, including Bauer. So who do you see stepping up in the ball carrying?
Well, Austin Sylvester will start for us at tailback. Austin's done a really good job. He redshirted for us last year, and actually was a guy that we suited up for a few home games in the event that Darren Walker and or Bo Bofferty would have been injured. So both those guys, Austin Sylvester and potentially Griffin Hill here, those guys will be maybe our 1-2 guys heading into Sioux Falls week, and then it may be running back by committee heading into the rest of the season. So we'll find out. It's a transition period, obviously, for us on the offensive side. Have faith in those 2 guys right now carrying the football, doing a good job for us in pass protection, understanding our offense, and they're 2 sharp tailbacks that don't rely upon our quarterback to get them aligned and tell them where they're going in the backfield.
On the flip side, you have 2 all-NSIC receivers back in Nate Ritchie and Jason Baltz, and that has to make you pretty optimistic about your pass-catching prospects. Anyone you see complimenting those 2?
On the receiving corps, for sure. Dominic Bonner's back from 2 years ago. Dominic is, a young man that took a semester off school, had to sit a season because of that, and is back for a senior season, and is probably equally as talented as both those guys. Those 3 are extremely explosive, talented, sharp athletes. And then James Conner is definitely our number 4 right now. James has done a good job for us. Very heady wide receiver. James is a guy, similar to the younger quarterbacks. James is a guy that's just been behind really talented wide receivers for his career, and every time he's been called upon, either on special teams and or in the game, he comes up with big plays, big catches for us. So James's role will expand for us this year, along with Obi Ibanimi, Nick Eliason, those guys, Johnny McCormick, those guys as younger wide receivers are going to continue to get more playing time.
The offensive line, usually always a strength of this club. What can you expect from that crew this year? Well,
we returned Nolan Folkert. Nolan's done a really good job for us as a senior captain. We moved him to right tackle, so we have some transition that's gone on in our offensive line. Matt Juneau returns at right tackle, and we moved him to left tackle this year. Jason Anderson and Joe Urnadich, both those guys inside, played quite a bit for us last year. They kind of rolled with Connor Randall, so all those guys got 2, 3, 4 series a game for us last year. Those are our 4 most experienced guys coming back, along with Trapper Ward. Trapper will start for us at right guard this year. And for a career, Trapper's going to be a junior, but he's kind of been a utility guy on the offensive line. He's played all over. Other than center, I think Trapper has had either starts and or playing time at 4 other positions.
Switching over to defense, first let's start. What do you see as some of your strengths this season?
Well, maybe for the first time since I've been here, since 2008, we are deep on our defensive line. We have a lot of talented guys there. We're 8, 9, 10 deep right now with guys that can roll and guys that can play. And although we've been talented in past years, we maybe haven't been as deep as we are this year. Returning Dre Greer, DeAndre returns at nose for us. He's a first-team all-conference guy, along with Carl Finkel. Those are certainly our two most explosive guys on the defensive line, along with Regis Henke. All three of those guys as starting defensive linemen right now are complemented with another 5-6 guys behind them that will get significant playing time. And for Coach Dill on the defensive line, as a defensive line coach, he's got the freedom right now to roll as many guys we can and keep those guys fresh. So we have a luxury that we don't need to necessarily play DeAndre Greer 70 snaps a game. We can keep him fresh and keep those guys ready to go.
Any areas of concern on defense?
Well, we have a little bit of youth at linebacker. Zach Bazina returns as senior captain and did a really good job for us last year at outside linebacker. But we have youth. AJ Nats has moved from outside to inside for us. So AJ hasn't necessarily had a start at the inside linebacker position, but we'll get his first this year. And Gus Wettig returns. Gus has kind of been a utility guy, very heady football player for us at the linebacker position. So those guys aren't concerns at all, but they're youth as far as starting positions, those two inside guys. So Desi Feeling's another guy as a redshirt freshman. Desi will see significant playing time this year at the inside linebacker spot as well. And as far as our secondary, we return Bishop McDonald. We get Jared Carroll back off of injury last year. We return Keegan Wirtz at safety position, and Bill Atkins and Sam Lynch. We have a very heady secondary right now, and we look forward to those guys stepping up and making plays this year for us.
And finally, as far as the outlook, how about special teams, primarily with the place kicking and punting responsibility?
Yeah, we're still working through our place kicking. We have a couple guys battling for that spot right now. Dan Branger, who also plays in the secondary for us, has done a good job and surprised us a little bit this camp. He's doing a good job getting the ball up, and then we return Cam Hausman at kicking as well. So both those guys are going to continue to battle. I would expect probably at some point throughout the season to see both those guys as kicker. Cam's going to start kicking off for us. He's got a stronger leg, does a good job. But both those guys will return for us and will battle in the kicking position. And then the punting position right now, we have Cam Hausman will start for us at punter, but we do have Ty Sullivan returning this year. We will utilize Nate Ritchie in the backfield as we did the last couple of years as well at punting.
Okay, and the NSIC coaches, their preseason poll listed your club once again as a team to beat in the NSIC North Division, and again one of the front runners in the NSIC overall title race. Is that a fair forecast?
Well, we hope so. So
from what you see from other teams,
you never know. I think this is a little bit different year. Going into last year, you looked at everybody's team, and I always say senior quarterbacks are tough to beat. Whether they're extremely talented or not, they're savvy and they're game experienced. And this year, there's not a lot of that in our league. And Southwest, I believe, returns a quality starter. Moorhead returns a quality starter, just off the top, and Bemidji State certainly. So those are teams that return starting quarterbacks. The majority of the other teams, and us included, Sioux Falls included, are going to start young quarterbacks and/or guys that maybe aren't quite as seasoned. So I think it's a tough thing to forecast. Preseason polls are always tough to forecast, and I think this year is no exception to that, and maybe even a little bit tougher for all of us.
Okay, and for the first time ever, the NSIC schools are now members of the Super Region 4 with the RMAC, Lone Star Conference, and the Great Northwest Athletic Conference instead of being in that Super Region 3. Any thoughts at all on that move?
Well, for us, we don't really know what to expect. We haven't faced a lot of those teams. We don't have non-conference games. We don't see a lot of those teams on film. We don't see the teams from Texas. We don't see the teams from California, and haven't in the playoffs as well. So we don't really know what to expect. I think it's a kind of a neat change for us, for our kids, if we are afforded the opportunity to be in the national playoffs, to be able to travel to new spots. And that's part of the luxury of having a playoff system in Division II.
And finally, this is your 10th year with the Bulldog football staff and your 5th as head coach. Now, back in 2008, when you joined the program as an offensive coordinator, did you have any idea that this is where you'd be a decade later? I mean, it's been quite a ride. Did you ever envision a couple national championships and all that's gone on in those?
Yeah, it's been a great ride, and I guess as a coach, you're always aspiring for your next win, and sometimes you don't sit back and appreciate that. 10 seasons is a long time. I was thinking about that the other night. When my family moved here, we were 29, 30 years old, and had really young kids. Now we have adults walking around our house, and we've played a lot of football at Mulaski Stadium. So seen a lot of great things with UMD football, and for me now it's to the point where a lot of guys that I've coached are out with families and coming back to games. So that's a neat thing to see, and to continue to build those relationships and see guys that leave our football program go on and do great things is equally as rewarding as any win we've had on the field.